All right, Ray, I want you to check out this Ford dealership right here. We did a video here recently. You see the ice on the ground, but look at
Yeah.
all the trucks. Look at where they're parked. Look at all the Broncos. Absolutely insane how much inventory this Ford dealership had. Now, Ford and GM, they recently just reported their earnings. And what I wanted to highlight was that, okay, both companies actually had some good numbers. Their stock sold off afterwards because they had some big time warnings for this year for 2025. And just want to show you that inventory on that Ford dealer lot because Ford right now has over 100 days supply of inventory sitting on their dealer lots. And this is a big reason why these two stocks have gotten hit pretty hard. This is a reason why Ford is throwing out a bunch of warnings for 2025. And I think as we go through this year, it's going to get worse. You're going to see more incentives come from Ford. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about okay, these dealer scenario. You've worked in these dealerships. What is going through your mind right now as a sales manager, as an inventory manager on a Ford lot in particular, where you're seeing okay that they're cutting production of some of these vehicles and they're still wanting you to take some allocations. What's going through your mind right now?
I let me preface this by saying I am so thankful at the moment that I no longer manage dealerships in any way, shape, or form. And the reason I say that is there are just so many unknowns um, that we have to consider in 2025. Businesses like to have a real good understanding of what the future holds, what the signals are for what's going to happen in the future. And right now, we don't know if you're in business from one day to the next what the future holds. There's just so much speculation and so much talk and there's so many different tariffs that have been spoken about for different countries for different materials. So if I was a manager at a Ford dealership or any dealership for that matter, I wouldn't know what the hell to expect. I would be when it came to inventory, I would be very conservative about what I stocked. I would not want to get too far over my skis as far as inventory and how much inventory I have on hand because I just don't know where we're headed in the future. Now, if you're part of Ford and Lincoln Mercury, and you have Lincoln at your dealership. Nobody has Mercury anymore, but if you have Lincoln at your dealership, and you have Nautiluses, and you can get more before any tariffs go into effect on the Nautilus because the Nautilus is built in China, and there's going to be a 10% tariff on anything coming in from China. Well, if I was selling Nautilus
As of right now,
as
we're
of
getting wishy
today,
washy here on the tariffs. Yeah.
yes, as of today. So if I were a dealer and Ford was offering me more of those and they sold well at my dealership, I would probably take extra ones that trying to play the long game, figuring in the future any ones that I were to get could be as much as 10% more expensive, or even 5% more expensive. So I think you have to be conservative and you have to kind of pick and choose what you want at the dealership. And I know Ford is going to try and push inventory down dealers' throats, um, but I there has to be a good incentive for you to take them. So you need to negotiate a good deal with your factory representative to make sure that you're leveling the playing field so that it could be equal or more in your favor.
So I want to let's look at this again. I paused it right here because if you see on the left, see that first Bronco. I wonder if I can move me
Yeah,
out of the way.
yeah,
Yeah. So see that first Bronco on the left right here.
yes,
It's actually on the grass. So
yes,
all this line of let's see, there's Ford Lightnings, there's F-150s, there's big body Broncos right there. This is just maybe 25% of this whole line. And then on this right-hand side, this is where people are supposed to drive.
Yes.
So this is where they actually have these cars parked because they're just out of space. And if you holding my mouse over here on this right-hand side over here, that is their service center parking.
Oh my
And
goodness.
those are all brand new vehicles. Here's my question for you. So we have all these tariffs that there's speculation whether or not these bluffing, whatever. Maybe it's going to come from Mexico. Maybe it's going to come whatever. Is there any situation from you from a manager standpoint getting vehicles more right now because of the threat of prices going up potentially? Is that even a thing? Or do you think the situation's so bad right now at these dealerships that they're just like, I just need to get rid of what I have now and we'll figure it out later?
I would take the approach of I just need to figure out how to get rid of what I have now. And the reason I say that is if you're already overstocked with inventory and you think to yourself, well, there could be tariffs and the prices could go up, so maybe I should take on more inventory now. And you're going to sit with that inventory for a longer period of time, and floor plan costs are going to add up on that inventory. So would the cost of carrying that extra inventory outweigh what the ultimate new pricing might be if there were a tariff? And I think I would lean more towards being conservative and thinking I'd rather just have the vehicle come in with the higher price later rather than sit on what I have now. Now, the hope would be that eventually you would sell the older stuff that you've been carrying because the MSRP is going to be less expensive to begin with. Now, here's the real kicker. What if the tariffs only last a week? Or what if the tariffs last two? I mean, we have no idea how long any of this stuff is going to last. So how are you supposed to plan? How do you look at the future and go, oh my God, we're going to have these tariffs. We're not going to have these tariffs. It is a bluff. It's not a bluff.
All right. So all of you watching it here, I know most of you are not subscribed. So I need you to hit that subscribe button. Whatever we need to do to get you to hit that subscribe button, Ray will do it. So just hit it for us and let us know what he needs to do down in the comments to get you to subscribe. Anyway, so here's the thing. I'm getting you off this topic real quick.
Yeah.
So here's one big thing that Ford and GM talked about. We'll roll back into the tariff conversation here. That was one of their big warnings is that, for Ford's case, it was going to be if we get these tariffs from Mexico. And from what it sounded like from Jim Farley from their earnings notes,
yes,
they expected something. Whether it's 25%, it's going to be something that's coming from Mexico that's going to make the auto industry more difficult to operate in. That's what they're expecting, and that's what they're telling shareholders. If they didn't think this was going to be the case, what's going on? All right, somebody clicked something, didn't mean to. Anyway, so if that's going to be the case, then you're going to have prices that have to be increased, whether it's Ford that's eating them, the consumer that's eating them, which is going to decrease sales. And then on top of that, you have delays that can happen in production because Ford said that if we have 25% tariffs, we got to figure out something else. And that means moving production to the U.S. But here's the thing. If you move production to the U.S., you are going to get delays, but you're going to have to pay more in labor. So it's still going to be higher. Either way, it's going to be a higher cost.
You would think that would be the way it could and would possibly play out. And so if you're Ford, and it's not just Mexico, it's Canada, how many vehicles are built in Canada that come to the United States? How many vehicles are built in Mexico that come into the United States? How many vehicles that are built in the United States get shipped all over the world? It's hard for each one of these manufacturers to read the tea leaves, because I'm not sure the tea leaves are even floating in tea. It's just it's so hard because you don't get a centralized message on a daily basis as to what the plan really is. So if you're a manufacturer in any, if you don't know, you don't know, and it just makes it that much more difficult. And there's only so much of the tariffs that any of these automobile manufacturers are going to be willing to eat, and the excess portion that they ain't willing to eat, well, that's going to end up raising the MSRP and the invoice pricing to the dealers, which ultimately means the ultimate buyer, the American consumer, is going to be asked to pay even more for the same product that they were paying less for just a few weeks ago or a few days ago. Could it stunt sales? I don't know. Could it drive more people out of the market? I would suspect it would. We know affordability is an issue. Um, can they make it up with lower interest rates? I don't know. I haven't heard that the Fed's planning on reducing interest rates any great degree. So it could severely impact the industry as we know it and the profits in the industry as we know it.
All right, so we have two that, okay, Ford also warned about some warranty costs, and this is just an ongoing thing. And we're talking about GM here too with their earnings that they just released. One thing that they didn't mention going forward was a headwind of warranty costs, but we know that we have the GM that's under investigation right now for their 6.2 liter motors, and this is like I think 2019 to 2024. But I think the 2025 motors are the same anyway. They have the same like the active fuel management or whatever that was giving them problems, where their rods can just blow through the side of the engine block. So I think going forward,
problem? Would that be a problem?
Yeah, if you create a shotgun size hole in the side of the block, yeah, that's a problem.
But anyway, stop unexpectedly.
And that's why they're doing the investigation, right? Okay. So it's a big safety concern. But we saw this same kind of probe that was put on to Toyota before they had all these big time warranty costs that came up too. So I think for GM and for Ford, quality going forward is going to continue to be an issue, and it's going to continue to cost these companies a lot of money. And GM is just the latest one. Seems like we're getting some kind of motor news from some kind of manufacturer every other week.
It is kind of crazy, and what's crazy is that Ford has had excessive warranty costs for years and years and years because, well, I don't know, they've led the industry in recalls for years and years and years, and despite of that, they had record profits last year. So it must be hard if you're a bean counter and you're the CEO and you're listening to the bean counters. It must be hard as the CEO to say, well, we really must improve quality so we have less recalls. When the bean counters say, well, the cost of improving quality would actually be more expensive than us just taking care of the damn recalls when they happen. That to me is the scariest part of the whole thing. It's cheaper to allow for a recall than it is to produce it right in the first place. And I guess it's cheaper because, well, it doesn't impact every vehicle. And just because you recall 600,000 vehicles doesn't mean 600,000 vehicles are going to show up at the dealerships to get fixed under that recall. So even though the recall expenses are higher than they should be, it is still cheaper than actually producing it right from Jump Street. And that goes for GM as well as Ford.
And I think in a lot of cases, they know that what these problems are before they even release these vehicles. I can't remember what it was, like a Ford, maybe it was a Ford Escape years ago or what. They released a new vehicle with a known problem, and whenever they sold it, they said, "This is the problem. We currently don't have a fix for it,
but we
but we're
will.
working on it."
Yeah. But
So
buy
I
it
think
anyway. Yeah.
yeah, so I think too, it actually gives these manufacturers time. They know they're going to have to recall it, but it gives them time to figure out what the actual fix is and what's going to be the cheapest fix for them to go. Hopefully, it's just a software issue. But when you have rods being thrown through the side of engine blocks, it's probably going to be a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not an over-the-air software repair. But maybe you send some guy out with that Flex Seal or whatever it is, and they can just cover up that hole.
Just do the spray like in the commercial. Yeah, right on the engine block. That'll fix it. That'll fix it.
Why wouldn't that work?
I wonder when these rods get launched through the engine block, what damage is on the other side? Because I mean, that's thick metal that is getting launched through. Is it stopping after it goes to the hole, or is it just keep going? Is this just like a bullet that's going through the side of the car?
Well, I would imagine that it can create many ancillary issues. Let's just say.
Imagine the sound when it happens. It's got to be like a bomb going off in front of you when you're driving one of these things at 70 miles an hour down the interstate.
Yes. And at that point, you might be cursing Ford or GM. But prior to that, hey, everything's A-okay. Nothing to worry about here.
I want to get back to these Broncos. These Broncos just they blow me away because you have something that was so hot when it came out.
Yes.
We're talking about the Ford Broncos. They were putting market adjustments. Was there ever a scenario that you dealt with a vehicle that was so niche that you had tons of people that wanted it right at release, and then after all those people bought it, it was like no one wanted it after that first wave? Did you ever have a vehicle with that scenario?
I can't say that I have. I don't remember one quite like that, where people were just lined up. They put their $100 deposit down to order one to get a reservation. I'm trying to think. I can't really think of anything at Mini when I was with Mini.
I got a vehicle that probably fits that vein, though. Let's see here. The PT Cruiser. You remember when that thing came out? Oh man, everybody wanted one of those things, and that maybe they sold through and they did well. Because I can tell you right now, honestly, if we see a PT Cruiser that has decent miles on it, we try to buy it because we sell them as soon as we get them. I don't know what the love is behind a PT Cruiser, but that's one of the ugliest vehicles that I've ever seen in my life.
Well, but I wasn't representing that brand anywhere. When I think back in my career, I was at Acura for a long time, and think about it. I can think of vehicles that they came out with that unfortunately nobody wanted to buy. The ZDX, when it was a gas powered vehicle, is one that I could think of. The RL, when they redesigned it, was another one I could, where it was just the opposite. There was nobody coming in to even look at them, as opposed to what the Bronco was and what the Ford Lightning was when it was initially mentioned as, oh, you can put in a reservation and order one. So no, I've never been in that. I wasn't with Mazda when the Miata first came out. That was another one where there was, everybody was paying $5,000 over to get one of those.
The Jeep Gladiator falls into that same vein too, because people were going crazy over the Jeep Gladiator. I mean, it's a Jeep with a truck bed on the back of it. Now Jeep can't give them away right now.
No, and but there was the longest time where they, at least the dealerships down here in the Atlantic City area and the South Jersey area, they were adding $5,000 and $10,000 dealer markups to every one of them, even as the inventory level of Gladiators was exponentially increasing on their lots. I mean, it was if they were in the back just making Gladiator babies. They were breeding on the lots, and yet they were still, every one of their addendum labels still had a $10,000 dealer markup on it.
Well, they were reproducing because they left the tailgates down. They shouldn't have done
That
that.
could be. That
Yeah.
could be. Yes.
All right, switch topics. All right, we talked about the Lincolns earlier. I want to show you this from that video. This is a Ford dealership. So see, Ford dealership, the Ford design. They had a Lincoln dealer that's right beside them,
Yes.
but they had so many Lincolns on that lot over there, they had to bring them over to the Ford dealership and park them in front of their Fords. So this was comical to me too. That you see all these Lincolns that are in front of the Ford. So you'll have to move all of these Lincolns right here to get any of these Ford Escapes out. And I I don't understand what goes on at these dealerships. I talked to a salesperson there too, and they said that okay, just about all the vehicles that are on that dealership. This was 2 weeks ago, I believe. Just about everything on the dealership was 2024s, but they still had 2023s. They still haven't got their big shipments of 2025s yet, and this is
wow.
a massive. I mean, you see, massive volume dealer, right? 2024s everywhere. I would say 9 out of 10 of the cars that I checked on that lot were 2024s.
The last time I checked, this is February of 2025, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
when I was with the Penske organization, come January 1st, I wasn't allowed to have any of the previous model year new cars left in inventory. So, I to me, it just all boils down to inventory management. And you really have to know what your daily sales rate is for each model in your inventory and keep your inventory levels within reasonable daily sales rate goals. And when you see it becoming somewhat out of whack, like at that Ford dealership and that Lincoln dealership, and you're just stacking them deep, and obviously, not necessarily selling them cheap, but just stacking them deep. As the new car manager or the new truck manager, you have to be looking at it and going, we can't accept any more allocations on Broncos, or we can't accept any more allocations on Corsairs or Nautiluses. I mean, you just you have to actively manage what your on hand and incoming inventory is, and you have to know it. And I would suggest at many dealerships, new car managers are not quite as in tune with their inventory levels as they should be, because if they were, they wouldn't allow themselves to get this deeply buried in their on hand inventory.
Yeah, and talking about like the big sales bump when they initially came out, the big body Broncos, had somebody ask about the sales numbers for the questions in the chat. I'm sorry, I should have pulled that up. But it says Ford sold about 109,000 Broncos in 2024 last year, and that's slightly up from what they did in 2023, but it's down from 2022. In 2022, they sold more Broncos than they did last year. That should not be the case because we had production problems in 2022, right? So this is showing you a big time example of a certain vehicle that was absolutely loved when it first came out. And then people are just like, no, we see them all everywhere now. I can give you another example of something that's similarly happening right now, and that's the Cybertruck.
Yeah. I think what happens, and I think you mentioned this earlier, is the early adopters of those vehicles, they came in, they bought them, and that created the stir and the excitement, and that's what led the manufacturers to think that this is going to continue. But the issue is those who wanted already got, and the rest were kind of like blah towards those vehicles, and so the market wasn't as strong as what Tesla thought it would be for the Cybertruck, and Ford thought it would be for the Lightning and the Broncos. So every now and then you guess wrong, and those are three cases where they guessed wrong, because Cybertrucks are sitting at the moment. I guess there's only so many people that want to drive something that ugly. And I know people get mad at me when I say that, but If you liked what you saw today, do us a favor right here at CarSense. Like and subscribe. We're new. We're growing. You can't do without us.